Good morning from Chicago and Washington, D.C. I'm Endy Zemenides, the Executive Director of the Hellenic American Leadership Council, and it is my great honor to have a fireside chat with someone who really needs no introduction, the esteemed Senator, great Phil Helene, and Chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Menendez. But I will give a bit of an intro, since we are at the Delphi Economic Forum, and we lost just last year, at the end of last year, one of the senator's great colleagues and mentors, Senator Paul Sarbanes. There was a point where Senator Sarbanes served as kind of a Delphic oracle of sorts. When he announced to the community that he was retiring, the community was quite despondent, and they were saying, "What are we going to do without you?" And the senator said, "You get Bob Menendez reelected and everything else will take care of itself." And he probably got that better than anything the Delphic Oracle got. So, Senator, thank you for being back with us at the Delphi Economic Forum. Senator,
Well,
I want
Andy,
to start off with this. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just thank you very much for the gracious introduction, and I am thrilled to be with you in the Delphi Economic Forum once again.
Thanks. And maybe the iconic image of last year's trip by Prime Minister Mitsotakis to Washington, D.C., which seems ages ago before COVID. But definitely the iconic image was when you hosted him with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and gave him this huge frame printout of your landmark legislation, the Eastern Mediterranean Security and Energy Partnership Act. That was like a dream. It's the most pro-Hellenic piece of legislation in our lifetime. It has really led the way in a new strategy in the region. Can you give us, again, your thought process, your ideas for this strategy and this legislation?
Well, Andy, it was a thrill to have the Prime Minister with us and to give him a signed copy of the legislation. Look, it is our view that the Eastern Mediterranean is an alliance of countries that share our values, that have mutual interests, and that can align for both peace, prosperity, security, and energy. And so that's exactly what we try to emphasize in the East Mediterranean Act. When we have Greece and Cyprus and, of course, Israel, true friends of the United States, those friendships are rooted in democratic values that we all hold dear. Their shared values are the strongest ties for lasting, durable partnerships to counter threats to our national security, our economic security, our energy security. And in the past few years, more and more people have joined me and the leaders at the Delphi Economic Forum in recognizing the importance of the East Med region. From energy resources to security cooperation to building economic ties, the opportunity, in my mind, for the Eastern Mediterranean are boundless if we have the strategic vision and the energy to pursue them. So going forward, I'm going to be pressing the Biden administration on full implementation of the East Med Act. I have raised those issues with Secretary Blinken during his confirmation process, and I look forward for continuing ways to deepen our cooperation with Greece and Cyprus, including the establishment of the U.S. Eastern Mediterranean Energy Center, as the law calls for.
You talked about pressing the Biden administration. President Biden will be meeting with President Erdogan on the sidelines of NATO. Do you think there are any messages that will be sent about the new East Med strategy?
Well, look, all of us would like to see Turkey be the type of NATO ally that we want NATO allies to be, one that is not only rooted in a security alliance, but also rooted in democratic values. Unfortunately, Turkey under Erdogan is not that. And Turkey has had a series of other malign activities within the region. What it is doing in the territorial waters of overflights in Greece, what it is doing in the territorial waters of Cyprus in the exclusive economic zone, its threat to create an exclusive economic zone that leads down to Libya, which is, it will not stand up internationally. Its engagement in the region. It just has, there are more lawyers and journalists that are now arrested in Turkey, sitting in Turkish jails, than in any other place in the world. And that's saying something, considering some of the places in the world. So I think that the mere fact that the administration is engaged in promoting the elements of the East Med is a clear sign to Erdogan that, in fact, there are other options, and you're not the only option in the region.
Senator, part of the reasoning for the East Med Act was trying to check China's growing influence in the region. You spoke about it when Delphi Economic Forum was in Washington, D.C. You recently introduced major legislation on China. Can you talk about the U.S.-China battle in the East Med?
Well, for the United States, and I would say for most of the world, China is our singular, most significant geostrategic challenge. And it is a challenge in which we must confront China for its violations of international law, like the questions of law of the sea in the South China Sea, where international navigation is important for Greece, is important for the United States, for its million Uyghurs that it has in concentration camps, for its violations as it relates to Hong Kong, its threats to Taiwan, its ethnic cleansing in Tibet, and I could go on and on. But beyond confronting China for its violations of international norms, we need to compete with China. And to compete with China, we have to both create prosperity at home, continue to invest in our infrastructure and efforts of innovation where we still lead the world. And we need to have our alliances strengthened, because collectively our economies are stronger and bigger than that of China. And when we do that, we can challenge the unfair trading practices that China promotes and has, the unfair trade barriers that exist in China, the debt trap that it creates for countries when it loans money, but it does so in terms in which that traps the country forever, in its usurious process, as well as its, in my view, malign influences of using its resources in a way that ultimately, insists that countries supported in international forums in ways that violate the very principles and values that we share. So, these are all reasons that I'm really proud that in a bipartisan effort that I led in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, we passed comprehensive legislation called the Strategic Competition Act that passed the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on a vote of 21-1. And these days in the United States Senate, you don't get those types of bipartisan votes, but it's an important piece of legislation that we brought everybody together. And so when the United States, the European Union, and of course European Union member countries like Greece and Cyprus work together, we can shine a light on China's malign activities. We can also be able to compete more successfully with China, and we can have greater transparency. And so I think that collectively we can have high quality alternatives to Chinese investment so that countries can develop their own economies and infrastructure in a safe, sustainable manner.
In your role as you're talking about developments on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, in your role as chair, and throughout your career, you've been a beacon for human rights and democracy being on the agenda, and you've done more than anybody pushing on the recognition of the Armenian Genocide, which you got recognized by unanimous consent in the Senate, and we saw the Biden administration finally recognize this year. Is this a good signal for human rights being back on the agenda? And what kind of signals does this send to Turkey for its continued aggression against Armenia and in Artsakh and Nagorno-Karabakh, its continued occupation of Cyprus, its continued repression of the ecumenical patriarch?
Well, first of all, I am extremely proud that I was able to pass the recognition of the Armenian Genocide in the United States Senate after years of it being blocked by Turkey's efforts. It took me going to the floor of the United States Senate on several occasions to challenge my colleagues to be on the right side of history. And of course, when I urged President Biden to keep his commitment that he made during the campaign and urged Secretary Blinken that this was the right thing to do, to send a global message that when we say never again, we mean never again, and that means recognizing historical facts as they are. So unfortunately, it took 106 years for the United States to do it, but President Biden, the first president of any party to do it, and I applaud him for the courage to do so, and he did it in a proclamation that was rather strong, as well as referring to the location of Patriarch, not as not by its present name, but by its historical name. So that was, I think, a very powerful message. It sends a powerful message globally that human rights and democracy are once again at the center of our foreign policy, as they should be. And a human rights focused policy in the Eastern Mediterranean means that the United States prioritizes human rights and democracy in our dealing with other countries. So Turkey's human rights abuses, as I have spoken about in the last question we were talking about, both domestically and abroad, are unacceptable. Turkey under Erdogan is just simply not a democracy. And it has not been, under Erdogan, a responsible actor on the world stage. Obviously, it's even if it's support of Azerbaijan's aggression against Nagorno-Karabakh underscores the dangers of working with countries that abuse human rights. I think it was a powerful, powerful message early on in the administration, something that needed to be historically righted. And with it, I believe 1.5 million souls were released to heaven.
Indeed. Do you have a message for Turkey? And it's insistent on two states and making occupation and division of Cyprus permanent?
Yeah, this will not stand. Cyprus remains divided because of Turkey. Greek and Turkish Cypriots, left to their own devices, would clearly have a one nation, bizonal, bicommunal federation that would live side by side, excuse me, as they did for decades. And so it is Turkey who continues to try to promote a two-state solution, because I believe it ultimately wants to annex northern occupied Cyprus. And in a two-state solution, it would have probably a lot easier time of trying to do that. That is not the view of the United States government. It is not the view of the international community. The recent talks collapsed not because of Cyprus, but of Turkey's intransigence. And I find it interesting, that it's that even Turkish Cypriots have rebelled against Erdogan's demands for Islamic education to take place, Quranic education to take place in northern Cyprus as a mandatory provision. That shows that even with large amounts of settlers that have come from Anatolia, who are not Turkish Cypriots, that there is some degree of independence, particularly by Turkish Cypriots. So it is Turkey that has continued to create this division. It is Turkey that still makes it the most militarized place in the world in terms of the Turkish troops that exist, and unilateral actions like the reopening of the Varosha beach has prevented progress as one of many examples. So I continue to impress that upon the State Department. And we'll raise this issue with Karen Donfried, who is the nominee to be the Assistant Secretary of State for Europe during her confirmation hearings.
Senator, during this bicentennial, thank you for joining us. It's worth noting, since we are celebrating the bicentennial, that you rank in history with the greatest of Philhellenes, and we look forward to having you at Delphi next year. And thanks for all you do.
Well, I'm delighted to be with you today. I'll be more delighted when we can do this in person once again, and certainly to extend my congratulations to the Greek American community and to the people of Greece as you celebrate this bicentennial. Ties between our two countries date back to our country's foundings, and I'm proud to have worked with all of you to bring the U.S.-Greek relationship to its strongest, closest level ever. The Delphi Economic Forum's annual conference is certainly a uniquely impactful event because it brings people from across the globe together to discuss what's happening now, but also for the brighter future we can work together. And going back to ancient Greece and its beginning of the very principles of democracy, and moving towards the Greek people who supported the American struggle for independence, and the American people who supported their brethren in Greece during Greece's struggle for independence. I could name Dr. Samuel Gridley Howe, Jonathan Peckman Miller, George Jarvis, who traveled to Greece to directly support the Greek people as soldiers, doctors, and more. This is a long, proud history that we share together. And together, I look forward to making it burn as brightly as possible for the years ahead.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.